At number 10. Robert Black. Robert Black, a van driver from UK, he got access to all kinds of places and this job was perfect for an aspiring serial killer. He would snatch little girls. Though he has been convicted of killing 4 of them from 1981 to 1986, police believe he killed many more. He would snatch little girls from on the road or convenient locales when no one else was looking. Their bodies would found several days later, mutilated and miles away from where they had been abducted. He was finally caught when spotted bundling a 6-year-old girl into his van in 1990. He is currently serving prison term and will likely never be released. At number 9. Richard Chase. Richard Chase was an American serial killer who believed that the Nazis were turning his blood into powder by poison they had planted below his soap dish. As a result, he was constantly afraid of running out of blood. He would shoot his victims, have sex with the dead body and then bathe in the resulting pool of blood. Of the number of small children he killed, he ate their internal organs and drank their blood. He was eventually arrested and sentenced to death. However, on December 26, 1980 he committed suicide in prison. At number 8. Jehved Iqbal. Jehved Iqbal was a serial killer from Lahore, Pakistan who was purported to have killed more than 100 boys before the long arm of the law finally caught up with him. He initially sexually abused 2 minor boys in June 1998, for which he was supposed to go to prison. He was let off on bail after serving a very short time. It was then that the murderous rage took over. He would stand on street corners and charm boys and men. Once they agreed to come with him, he would drug and rape them. Then he strangled and dismembered their bodies. Then he dunked these dismembered pieces in hydrochloric acid to dissolve them. He would then dump the remains in the public sewers. He would keep the clothes and shoes of his victims as personal mementos. He was sentenced to death on March 16, 2000. Apparently committed suicide by hanging himself in his cell with bed sheets on October 8, 2001. At number 7. Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer was an American serial killer from Milwaukee who had killed more than 17 men after luring them to his apartment. He had dismembered their bodies brutally and kept their skulls as souvenirs. He even admitted to eating parts of his victims. He was caught when his final intended victim had managed to escape from him and was running desperately down the road. Fortunately, a police patrol car was going down that way that he managed to flag down. Dahmer was sentenced to 957 years in jail, in Wisconsin on February 15, 1992, but was murdered in jail by convicted murderer Christopher Scarver on November 28, 1994. At number 6. Colin Ireland. Colin Ireland was a former British soldier who decided to become a serial killer one fine day. He decided that homosexual men would make for the best and easiest victims because of their loose and flamboyant lifestyles and went after them. Before killing his victims, he would turn all their family picture frames on the mantelpiece towards the wall so that they would not witness the crime. With each successive murder, he grew in confidence and would call the Scotland Yard police, taunting them to catch him. His first victim was theatre director Peter Walker. He stripped him naked and tied him to the bed before strangling him. Before leaving his residence, he called the police to alert them to the crime. He got away with 5 murders before the law caught up with him. He had picked up his latest victim, Emmanuel Spiteri, from a gay club. Footage of both of them crossing the street surfaced on CCTV footage and he was finally tracked down. What is even more pathetic is that he had strangled the pet cat of one of his victims, Andrew Collier, while in the process of murdering him. However, he was sentenced to life in prison December 20, 1993, he died on February 21, 2012 in Home Prison, Wakefield, United Kingdom. At number 5. Dennis Nilsson. Self-professor loner Dennis Nilsson had driven at least 15 young men and boys, probably more, to their deaths. He lured them to his house on some pretext or the other and then killed them. He preserved their corpses and slept with them on his bed for several days till the putrid rotting stench became too much to bear. This was apparently done to alleviate his loneliness. He would have gotten away with his efforts at friendship and neighbors had not complained about blocked drains. Nilsson would cut up and burn the corpses once he was done with them and then flush them down the drain. The plumber decided to have the pieces analyzed and was shocked to discover the pieces to be human flesh. In 1983 he was sentenced to life in prison. At number 4. Joaquin Kroll. Joaquin Kroll was a serial killer and cannibal from Germany who had killed and eaten 13 people, including little children, during his reign of terror. He was finally caught in 1976 when desperate policemen were going from home to home and one exasperated neighbor complained to them of pipes being jammed in the building. The person who was sent to examine the pipes was asked what was blocking them. He replied simply, "Guts." Kroll claimed he would slice flesh from his victims and cook them to save grocery bills. When arrested, he thought that he would be operated upon to cure him of his cannibalistic urges and then released. He was instead ordered to serve 9 life sentences, but he died in 1991 of a heart attack. At number 3. Andrei Chikatilo. Ukrainian serial killer Andrei Chikatilo was truly one of the most despicable and menacing men to ever have walked the earth. He was nicknamed the Butcher of Rostov and the Red Ripper in description of the crimes he committed. He butchered 53 women and children between from 1978 to 1990 when he was finally caught. He first lured a 9-year-old girl to the woods and tried to rape her. When she struggled, he slashed her throat. He achieved sexual gratification at the sight of the dying girl begging, and from then on was able to achieve an erection only when he violently killed women and children begging for their lives. He would mostly approach prostitutes, tramps, but abducted little girls whenever he could. Since he lived in the Soviet era, such crimes tended to be brushed under the carpet because communist governments likes to claim that terrible crimes like rape and murder only happened in immoral capitalistic countries. He was captured in 1990 and went to trial in 1992. During the trial process, he was kept in a cage at the center of the courtroom, ironically for his own protection. The bereaved family members of the victims he had killed were out for his blood and would have lynched him were it not for the cage keeping him safe. A firing squad was dispatched to execute him and he was killed by a single bullet at the back of his head. At number 2. Ted Bundy. The most notorious serial killer in the U.S. history, Ted Bundy is famous for all the wrong reasons. He raped and murdered an unidentified number of young women from 1974 to 1978. Though he confessed to the tally being 30, police believe the actual number to being much higher. He was supposed to be quite good-looking and charming and would always single out his victims in a highly public place. He would either feign injury by wearing a sling or a cast. Or he would pretend to be a public official like a fireman or a policeman. He kept a crowbar below his car seat and would knock out the victims the moment they approached the car. He raped the live victims and then had sex with the dead, decaying bodies. He applied makeup on these corpses before having sex with them. He was caught and executed through the electric chair on 24 January 1989. His last words were, "I'd like you to give my love to my family and friends." At number 1. Childress. Childress is called the father of serial killing. It is especially sad because prior to turning to a life of crime, he was a military captain in the army of St. Joan of Arc. Born in 1404, Childress raped, tortured and killed hundreds of little children, mostly boys. He was attracted to blonde, blue-eyed little boys. He would promise them sweets and treats and lure them to his castle. He would then torture and mutilate them in the most inhuman methods possible, ejaculating over the dying children. His greatest pleasure lay in bathing in their blood. He liked to stab them in the jugular vein and enjoy the squirting blood sprouting over him. After the deed was done, he was immensely regretful and would whip himself and pray for hours on in the family chapel. His servants were left to burn the bodies in the fireplace and clean the room after bathing in blood.